Hello and welcome to episode 35 of the How to Survive podcast. This week, witness brother, witness! We're talking about Mad Max Fury Road from 2015. My name is Joe and I am joined as ever by Chris. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well.
Good to hear it. This week, as we said, is Mad Max Fury Road. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you do go and do so as quickly as possible because I think we can both agree it's one of our top films
Yes.
for last year.
Definitely.
Yeah, and should have won the Oscar. And
I wouldn't have argued.
No, exactly. We'll come to that. But first, a recap on the plot. So if you haven't seen it, spoiler alert, we're going to dig into it in massive detail.
Yeah.
And it really is a film that you should see.
And also, as ever, we're going to touch on How to Survive after recapping the events of the film.
Yes. So we'd like to know everything about what we're talking about before we get there.
An informed survivor is a better survivor.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
So digging into the plot, we start with a scene where Mad Max, who we'll know from pop culture, is overlooking a cliff.
Do you want to know what his surname is? Max Rokitansky.
Well, there we go. Max Rokitansky is overlooking a sort of valley. It's apparent that he's out of his mind, a bit crazy, he's hallucinating a bit, but you do realise he is in fact being chased by an unknown pursuant. They catch him. They turn out to be the War Boys, the army of the evil, tyrannical leader, Immortan Joe. No relation.
Based on your upbringing.
Yes. So we then pick up with Immortan Joe, who is about to send Furiosa, Imperator Furiosa, played by Charlize Theron.
Just every character name in this film is fantastic.
I know. She's about to drive off to get fresh oil because there seems to be an oil shortage. I mean, we need to mention that Joe rules over this sort of poverty-stricken peasantry who he's just given water to, being that this is a particular day in their calendar.
Like a lot of the world is left to the imagination, why it's in the state it's in.
Exactly. Well, we know there's a nuclear war. This is the events of a nuclear holocaust, and all these weird and wonderful people are the survivors.
And there's like Immortan Joe's Citadel appears to be like a water, themed place, and then there's also the bullet farm and the oil fields and all this sort of thing. So
different themes for different areas of the film's universe, should we say. So Furiosa has set off to find oil with a bit of a convoy of war boys. The war boys are mutants, basically. They're completely pale and bald.
They're radiation sick.
We learn that they have various forms of cancers and things like that as a result of living in a completely radiated zone, I suppose. So she's got a few of them on her tail, and she says we're going off course, and she's the leader, so they say fine. But then Joe looks at them through a telescope and realises that all is not well. They shouldn't be going that way.
No.
So he raises a small army to follow after them. And in part of that army is Nux, one of the war boys, who has chosen Mad Max to be his blood bag. So obviously they've got bad blood because they're irradiated. So
they've got half-lives. So they're called half-lives.
Exactly.
And obviously it's radioactive, and also references the fact that they're not long for this world.
Yes, and they use human basically beings. As blood bags. So he's got intravenous drip from Tom Hardy's character Mad Max into his own. And they tie Mad Max to the front of the car and set off at full speed. And this is where it really becomes a Mad Max film. Big rigs and big cars chasing after each other. So a road battle soon ensues. But Furiosa is a clever person indeed. She's driving a massive war rig, by the way.
Which is basically like an articulated lorry, isn't it?
But she's got other cars helping her out. But they realise all was amiss, and everyone starts to turn on her, starts attacking her. None more so than Nux, who, as a member of the War Boys, is absolutely infatuated with Immortan Joe, to the point where they are suicidal in their attempts to impress him. So
he's desperate for Immortan Joe to witness him.
Yes, and they all say, witness me, brother. So if Immortan Joe looks at you, so much as sends a glance your way, that is a religious experience.
Yes.
So these guys want to kill themselves in order to prove they're sort of worthy of Immortan Joe and joining him in Valhalla.
Yeah.
And Nux is representative of this, and he tries to crash his car into
the big rig.
Yes, but fails. She drives it into a sandstorm and loses most of the tail.
Yeah.
Including Max, who is no longer tied to the front of the car but has broken loose.
Yeah.
So Max starts to walk towards the big rig, as you can see in the distance.
Yeah.
And he arrives there. There's a bit of a showdown between him and the occupants of the vehicle, who turn out to be the 5 wives.
Yeah.
Sex slaves of Immortan Joe.
Yeah.
They are Capable, Cheeto, Toast, the Dag, and Angharad, who is heavily pregnant with Joe's baby.
Known officially as the Splendid Angharad.
Really?
Yeah, that's how she's referred to in the cast list.
Well, that's how we should do it from now on.
Yeah. TSA.
Yep. Nux, who has been up to this point tied to Max, wakes up and he begins to react quite violently to what's going on.
Yeah.
Max orders them to cut the cord between them. Then he tries to steal the big rig, leaving everyone else there, but it breaks down because there is a kill switch that he's failed to activate.
Yeah.
Furiosa points out that the only way they're getting out of there and escaping the ensuing mob led by Immortan Joe is if she drives. So they all climb aboard. Max takes all of the guns that Furiosa's hidden around the cab, and they set off. And Nux runs after them and jumps onto the back of the van as they go. They drive to a canyon, which has been blocked by a biker gang, who have previously assured Furiosa that she'll be able to pass safely. However, they say that she welched on the deal, as she's being followed by an entire army led by Immortan Joe.
Yeah.
So they go to kill her, but she's told Mad Max to basically drive off. Yeah. She jumps on the van. They all head to safety. Yeah. They're pursued by the biker gang. Yeah. They kill the biker gang, basically. Immortan Joe eventually catches up to them, and in Immortan Joe's posse in his car is also Nux, who was previously thrown from the big rig by Max when he found him. Yeah. So Nux now knows. He says to Joe, "I've got the measure on these guys. I know exactly what's going on. Yeah. Let me prove myself worthy. Yeah. And I'll jump on." So he does, but misses. Yeah. And earns the scorn of Immortan Joe. Yeah. So he retreats to the back of the big rig in utter embarrassment.
Yeah. He ends up hanging off the side, doesn't he?
Yeah, for some time. But that in itself is a cowardly act.
Yeah. He's embarrassed himself, basically.
Yeah. So he's embarrassed. He goes to the back of the rig. So now we're in full chase mode across the desert. So the splendid Angharad. Yeah. She slips out of the cab. But she holds on with one arm. And as Joe passes on the side, he tries to shoot Max, but she puts herself in the way. The firing line falls under the wheels of Immortan Joe's car, killing her and her baby. Yes. At that point, Furiosa explains to Max that they're all headed to the Green Place, where she grew up before she was kidnapped as a child, which is obviously a good prospect in the desert to have somewhere green. Suggests that there's water and life better than just sand.
A veritable oasis.
Exactly. Next up is the Bullet Farmer, a colleague of Immortan Joe's, who's this fat man basically who chases after them, but they get stuck in the mud. So the Bullet Farmer closing in, they begin to fire at him with their high-powered weapons. Furiosa gets a good shot in and blinds him. Yeah. And then Max heads off screen and returns covered in blood with weapons. Yeah. And one of the 5 wives says, "Oh, you're bleeding." And Furiosa says, "That's not his blood."
Yeah. He's mad.
So they drive off, eventually reaching a swamp, which they head straight through, and eventually they arrive at a kind of platform atop which a naked woman sits. Furiosa gets out and explains that she's a member of a particular clan, a particular tribe, and the woman then gives a signal to a nearby group who arrive. They are the Vuvalani. Yes. A group of old ladies, or just women in general, who have aged, which presumably Furiosa used to be a member of. She finds out that various people she knew have died in the ensuing years, and that, in fact, the swamp they recently passed through is what the Green Place has become in this post-apocalyptic wasteland. So they set out to get some more distance between themselves and Immortan Joe, but then decide that the best course of action would be to turn back and retake the Citadel for themselves, as it now stands unguarded.
Yes, because Immortan Joe's taken his entire army in chase of Furiosa, so the Citadel is now unguarded.
Exactly. So they head back, passing Immortan Joe on the way and giving away their plan. Joe works out the plan, and a protracted battle plays out at high speed between the rig and various other cars, including circus performers and guitarists and all kinds of nonsense. Joe is eventually tricked and killed by having his oxygen mask dragged off his face.
Yeah, along with much of his face.
Yeah, and his skull. And his son, a big strong man who we'll come to later, he's killed by Nux, who crashes the war rig in a suicidal fashion, ending both his and the son's life.
And blocking the canyon so the rest of the force can't pursue them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they arrive back at the Citadel.
Mm-hmm.
The whole party safe. Furiosa has been wounded in the pursuit, but she manages to climb to her feet as they arrive.
Mm-hmm.
They've got the body of Immortan Joe draped across the bonnet of their car, much to the enjoyment of everyone who now celebrates the end of their persecution, basically.
Yep.
They're raised onto a platform, and Furiosa looks around as the crowd cheers them to find Max, but he's nowhere to be seen. Then she glimpses him disappearing into the crowd.
Yep.
And the movie ends with them being raised up, the new rulers of the Citadel.
Yep.
And that is Mad Max. Hopefully, it wasn't too confusing in my description, because it's a very confusing movie.
Yes. Even though it is basically one straight line.
One car chase.
Yeah.
So, obviously a bit of a crazy movie, but what did you think of it, Chris?
I really liked Mad Max Fury Road. I went into the cinema to see it when it first came out, and had low expectations.
Why?
For some reason, the trailers that I'd seen didn't appeal, and I mean, typically action blockbusters nowadays, the vast majority of them are not very good,
especially remakes.
I just had low expectations, maybe through conditioning, through previous disappointments, but I had a really great time watching the film. It's so much fun.
It's mental, isn't it?
Yeah. It's mad, in every sense. And I had no interest in or knowledge of the Mad Max franchise again, so that's another reason why I had no particular excitement or anticipation for it. But I just had a great time, and I think a lot of that comes down to the relentless pace of the film.
Which starts and is in its entirety one big car chase.
Yeah, it is exactly that, and it makes the whole film constantly driving, and I mean that in the adjective sense, driving narrative and driving action, and it's just great fun, and everything about the film I enjoyed, basically.
Yeah, fair enough. I'd agree wholeheartedly with that. But I take it and say what impressed me perhaps the most about it is that it's mostly all done with physical effects. Obviously there are digital effects. Like Furiosa's got a robotic arm. And there's various things that are obviously digital, like the post effects. But for the large part, it's actually cars driving around in the desert. And one of the most impressive things is a particular scene where they're trying to sort of jump into the car, but they're on these elasticated poles. It's really hard to explain.
They're exactly that. It's almost like some insane circus.
I imagine everyone in that scene is a circus performer.
But it's all done physically. There's
amazing.
You can find the video on YouTube, which is B-roll from the shoot, which is to say that it's behind the scenes basically video. You can see all these stuntmen hanging off the poles, swinging as they drive 40 miles an hour in the desert. And it's amazing to watch, and it translates. That physicality translates into the film.
Exactly, because you never really have to suspend disbelief.
No,
I mean you do, because it's obviously a post-apocalyptic wasteland inhabited by various mutants. Let's talk about them. So Immortan Joe, we don't really know how he came to power. We don't know anything about his backstory. I mean, I assume there's Wikipedia articles on him.
A tie-in graphic novel.
Exactly. But we only base it on the text of the film, and we know absolutely nothing about him, other than he's a bit of a nasty piece of work, isn't he?
He is, we know as much as Max knows, don't we? So, anyone can see that he's got that community under the thumb, basically.
So he's got 2 sons. One who's a massive steroid head, by the looks of it.
Yeah.
Rictus Erectus. Mm-hmm. And another son who is a head, like a withered
body.
Yeah.
Who's presumably like the intelligent.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
He's called Corpus Colossus.
Yeah.
We've got the War Boys, who are Joe's army.
Yeah.
We've got the Bullet Farmer, obviously, this sort of disgusting, perverted fat man who is incredibly uncomfortable every scene he's in because he's so weird. Mm-hmm. The 5 wives, obviously, who we mentioned earlier, who are sex slaves, although they're never portrayed in any sort of sexual situation. They just usually say they're sex slaves, and that's enough. The Vuvulani, obviously, a very strong female tribe. We've got Mad Max himself, who's obviously mad, and then the main character of the film, Imperator Furiosa.
What's good is that the film. I mean, we don't know anything about almost any of these characters, but we don't need to, because everything that you need to know about them is communicated so effectively that you don't need any sort of backstory. The only sort of hint at backstory is Max's flashbacks.
Yeah, where you occasionally see
a girl and a woman being run down.
Yeah.
Which, hints at why he might be the way he is. Yeah.
Essentially, he's just along for the ride, isn't he? In every sense of the phrase.
Yeah.
Because he's in the cab with them, and you didn't know where he's going. He's just trying to survive and get away from Immortan Joe's people. To be fair, he does support Furiosa in her
ably.
Because she's trying to get, I should explain, and it's mentioned this in the intro, she's trying to get the 5 wives to safety, away from sort of
Immortan Joe.
Who has kept them as sex slaves.
Yeah. Because Furiosa, as you say, is basically the main character, really. Yes. She's the one who, once again, I don't mean this in a pun sense, but she's the one who drives the narrative.
Yes. But she's in control. It's her journey across the desert to save these people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when it came out, it was described as, in various places, as a feminist masterpiece.
Right.
Because of Furiosa. But whether this is actually the case is actually debatable.
Well, let's just agree that when we say feminist masterpiece, we mean it's got strong women in it.
Yes.
Not in the sense of some critics of the film have said that it's a
feminist propaganda.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, given the fact that it's a harem of beautiful women,
yes,
who are essentially still damsels in distress, aren't
they?
Yeah. Even if they're being saved by a woman, there is that element to it. But regardless of whether or not it is, I'm all for it if it weeds out the people who complain about the film based on the fact that...
woman,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's no accident that it has this, because I'm aware that George Miller consulted with the author of the Vagina Monologues on the portrayal of women.
Okay.
To make sure that they were fairly represented. So I'm 100% certain that any feminist reading of this film is not going to be an incorrect one.
Well, I mean, that, in terms of the narrative and whatever you'd call that cultural relevance of the film, we're clearly big fans, but I'm a massive fan of like the technical aspects of the film as well.
Right, yeah.
I mean, you touched on it earlier when you were talking about the stunts and physicality of it. But I think the fact that it's so colourful is a really refreshing change from the typical blockbuster, especially seeing as it's like a post-apocalyptic thing.
Yeah, exactly.
How many post-apocalyptic films have just really bland grey brown colour palettes because everything the world's so horrible.
Take any Michael Bay production, which is washed out gunmetal.
The George Miller actually wanted to do the film in black and white, which is quite interesting, but he went, it ended up with the extremely vibrant colours of the film. And there's the scenes where they're driving through the desert. It's like proper blue sky, orange sand, and they've got those coloured fireworks going off. It's just fantastic. Like seeing it in the cinema was amazing.
So there's the two scenes that stick out in terms of colour when they're driving through the sandstorm. And there's violent flashes of lightning. But rather than just blind us with white light, the colour sort of becomes natural.
I know what you mean. It's an interesting effect.
Yeah, exactly. And the other is when it's nighttime, rather than have it all dark and you can't see anything, shadows, they just completely invert the color to red.
Yeah.
So even though it's night, you're just seeing a red, violently red. In fact, it burns your retinas, and that's how you learn that it's dark.
Yeah. And also like the editing and cinematography is brilliant. I would urge everyone who's listening to Google Mad Max Center Framed, and what it is like a scene from the film when Mad Max and Furiosa fight next to the truck when it's stranded in the desert. And it's a great example of how tightly shot and edited the film is, because almost all the action takes place within a very small portion of the screen, like in the center of the frame. And the result of that is that your eye barely has to move between shots to be where the action is on the screen. Sure. And that allows it to remain completely visually coherent, even when the pace of the editing is really high, and because your eye doesn't have to move. So your eye's able to instantly take things in, even though the cutting is really fast. And the director of photography is John Seal, and the editor is Margaret Sixel, and they deserve...
The wife of George Miller.
Yes, and they deserve all the praise they got. And it justifiably won the Best Editing Oscar, as well as 5 others, which is more than any other film at the 2016 Academy Awards. And they were all in technical categories.
Yeah, including costume design.
Yeah, and I think the flawless technical presentation of the film elevates it above like the modern...
Yeah.
What a typical standard post-apocalypse blockbuster into something of a much higher quality.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a movie. I mean, we couldn't have a conversation about the technical benefits of the technical merits of, say, Transformers.
No,
it wouldn't.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if you, I mean, we'll talk about the Oscars again. I know we talk about them a few episodes.
Yeah.
But the winner this year was Spotlight, which, to my mind, doesn't bring anything to the museum of cinema, so to speak.
Yeah, so it's
just a TV film, right?
Right.
Whereas this, they've done things that have never been done in movies before,
or done them better.
Yeah,
than any other movie. Yeah.
So you had to actually break boundaries when making this film,
yeah,
in order to ensure that it was the correct way to tell a story.
Yeah, Spotlight is a good film and a worthy film, and I mean worthy in the sense of it's covering a worthy,
an important story.
Yeah. But it doesn't set an example of
brilliant filmmaking,
exactly in the way that Mad Max does.
Take The Revenant, where I mean, as you said before, that incredible opening battle, that and the battles that take place in Mad Max have more to them, I think, than any other film in the last sort of year. So let's talk about the world of Mad Max. We don't really know much about it. We're thrown in at the deep end with him. Trying to sort of make what we can of it.
Yeah, other than it's a radioactive
environment.
And it's Australia.
Yeah, and that there's war boys.
Imagine how bad the world must have got for people to want to nuke Australia.
Yeah, and this is so far advanced that Australia has become a superpower.
Maybe.
And
because of their landscape being so accommodating to agriculture and population growth.
But essentially this world is bright and beautiful, and were it not for the marauding hordes of mutants and murderers, you probably wouldn't mind living there, really, except for the drought and the desert. You take my point though. It's quite nice.
Yeah, I think the world, the fact that it's all so vibrant is probably supposed to be communicating how mad everyone is.
Yeah,
that's how they're seeing it through their sort of weird, damaged, mad minds.
It's chaotic. And
the technical elements of the film, I always go on about this. I love it when films, the way the film is made or constructed matches the subject matter. It's a mad film in that sense, because it's constantly speeding up, slowing down. Manic camera work and editing, and it feels like a madly put together film.
Yeah, and the weird stuff that happens, the guitarist on a bungee cord playing a flaming guitar.
Yeah,
that's just like given as like this is a thing that happens in this world.
Yeah. I like how it's it manages to communicate like how a whole like culture has developed around like cars
and oil,
and vehicle combat. Yeah, like all of the things that happen, like it seems like they're standard day-to-day things in that world.
Yeah.
Like they're clearly prepared for these battles because they have loads of cars with the big waggling sticks on the back.
Exactly.
And like those grenades on spears that they use.
This isn't the first time they've had to drive hundreds of miles an hour in pursuit of someone.
Yeah, it's like a whole new way of battling.
Even their military salute is I'm doing it, miming it now, but it's crossed fingers suggesting a V8 engine.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That didn't occur to me.
And they went before they killed themselves, these war boys, they sprayed silver paint in their mouth, chrome.
Yeah.
They chrome up, or they chrome as a verb.
Yeah, as though like being like, because obviously in this world nothing is new.
Yeah.
And it's like they're making themselves shiny and new.
Yeah.
Like metallic.
Yeah. Creepy.
Yeah.
But I guess that's kind of like they're just taking a hit of solvent in order to make themselves euphoric.
It's a like a warrior thing as well, isn't it? It's like amping yourself up.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a ritual.
For sure.
Yeah.
So the first chase we see, which is also the whole film basically, is one chase, but it begins with Max
Rokitansky.
Yeah. Tied to the front of Nux's car.
Yeah.
And that lasts for 10-15 minutes.
Yeah.
And Max is just a passenger.
Yeah.
Not even that, he's the victim. Right?
Yeah. Is Furiosa's plan just to hope no one realises I'm gone until it's too late?
Well, she's teamed up with the people in the canyon. So I think she wasn't counting on breaking down when she did.
No.
In which case, she would have got well ahead.
Would she, though? Because she was already being attacked before she has to drive through the sandstorm. And the sandstorm is the reason that she breaks down.
That's true.
I think because it's like... It seems to be that she's... Because obviously you have these various factions. And it seems like she's making a beeline through a lot of them simultaneously in order to just cause chaos and hopefully escape in the ensuing battle, which is a mad plan. Yeah. And everyone in this film is mad.
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're suggesting that she isn't... Like, she's taken leave of her wits as well. She doesn't really know...
Even though she seems to be, like, a more grounded individual.
Yeah. She's also an idiot.
Well, she's not an idiot. She's just mad. Yeah. She's a product of her environment, as everyone else is. Yeah. Yeah. But then they get to the green place.
Right, yeah. So first of all, they go through a swamp, which turns out to be the green place.
Yeah.
And there's kind of men on
like
stilts,
weird,
four-legged stilts.
They remind me for some reason of those, like the old doctors who used to wear the giant beak masks. Yeah,
which
I think they've got
with
herbs and
because they thought the plague was caused by bad smells.
Yeah. But they sort of stilt walk over the marsh.
I was reading, doing the Wikipedia research for this. Mm-hmm. That's the extent of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was some mention of these stilt walkers as being members of the Vuvalani tribe, the men from it.
Ah, right.
But I don't see how that really works out because they're stilt walking. So I don't know. I think you'd have to have a much deeper knowledge of the Mad Max universe than we do in order to understand what that means. But so maybe a bit further reading for you there, listener.
Yeah. Well, if you have seen the other films and you want to let us know, educate us. Then
actually, I think this part was explained in a graphic novel.
Then email in.
Yeah. If you know anything about what's going on here, email in HowToSurviveShow@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And then the final scene, Furiosa's injured, right? Maimed, and Max gives her some blood because he's a universal donor.
Yeah, which in this world is, clearly very useful.
Because if anyone's losing blood, you can give it over.
Yeah. So
she survives and becomes essentially the queen of the new republic.
Yeah, or Immortan Furiosa.
Yeah.
Yeah. If Immortan is a title.
It's a title of Tsar, I suppose.
Do you think in the next Mad Max film, because they're doing 4 of them, Furiosa could be some sort of villain taking over from Immortan Joe, or would you prefer that she just gets left behind?
Yeah, I think the next one will be Max meets a child on the road, and he's like, I'm on my way to
or it'll be a woman with
someone.
It'll be a woman with a metal leg.
Yeah, exactly.
So the thing with this citadel that she ends up taking over, that they liberate from Immortan Joe. Could it be that Immortan Joe was actually, to an extent, right to limit the people's access to water? because presumably it is a
finite resource.
A resource that's at a premium and will one day run out, because there doesn't appear to be any rain or any source of water, and it will run out soon if it's given out constantly in the form of a waterfall.
Yeah, so you say put the waterfall on for like an hour a day or something.
Well, that's basically what Immortan Joe was doing anyway.
Yeah.
But let his ego...
Don't drink too much water or you'll get addicted.
Yeah, but he let his ego get the better of him and allowed himself to become a sort of messiah figure.
Yeah.
So if he basically just didn't do that part...
So he led with a sort of social conscience.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, yeah. So was it a more benevolent dictator?
Yeah. Is there such a thing?
I don't know. Who knows? It's not a question for us to answer.
No. But what at the end of all that, what do we know about the world of Mad Max Fury Road? I mean, the real threats to survival, if you're Max or any of the heroic party, are Immortan Joe and his boys, the War Boys, and his various other friends and well-wishers and colleagues.
Relatives.
Yeah. And that's basically it, other than being thrown off of a car by him. But essentially that is the big threat. The antagonist of the film is Immortan Joe and his army. So what do we know about them, other than the fact that they can drive really well, they can jump on your car, and they can throw spears and things?
Yeah, they're in various states of ill health, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, yeah.
Immortan Joe has to wear his oxygen mask. Rictus Erectus, is that his name?
Rictus Erectus is his son, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a sort of nose oxygen mask thing as well.
That's right, yeah.
And obviously Corpus Colossus is in no state to do anything physically.
Corpus Colossus.
Yeah, and his whole army are radioactive. And as you say, the other leaders of the different factions, the Bullet Farmer is sort of old and like wiry, and then is it the oil guy who's incredibly fat?
Yeah.
And
did I get them around the wrong way?
Possibly, yeah.
So I think maybe just now we were talking about them, and I described.
I can't remember which.
I'm sure the Bullet Farmer gets blinded.
Yeah, the Bullet Farmer is the one who stood on his car firing 2 machine guns.
Yeah, and
then the other one is the guy who's got. Is it like one enormous fused foot, or like?
Yeah.
Like he's a slug man, but he's like Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah. And
I think he's the oil guy.
Right. Okay.
Possibly. But yeah, they're all.
It's Testament. We've both seen the film twice, and you can't work out who's who.
Yeah, but it's they're everyone in the world is sick, other than Max, Furiosa, and the 5 wives that get rescued.
Except only 4 because Angharad is
the splendid Angharad dies. Yeah.
So I think we know enough now, Chris, to competently answer the question that we came here to answer. How would you survive if you found yourself out of control on the Fury Road?
Yeah. Well, on the Fury Road, the only vehicle that basically sustains itself for the duration of the film is the war rig.
Yes. Which is only destroyed when it's done deliberately by its driver.
By Nux, yeah. So my idea would be to be the one who builds the war rigs and then make one for yourself and survive in it.
Just drive off and no one can do anything. Yeah.
Well, many of the vehicles in the world appear to be the product of like vanity mechanics.
Yes.
Especially Immortan Joe and the Bullet Farmer and all those. Like a lot seems to be made of
big engines,
like guitarists hanging off the front.
Yeah.
Cars stacked upon cars to make a sort of terrifying, big and imposing vehicle, but they clearly hold less practical value than the war rigs. And while I'm sure that parts and vehicles are at a premium in this post-apocalyptic world, they don't appear to be the result of like logical or well thought out construction, because they all appear to be focused on looking the scariest rather than what's going to be the best vehicle to survive.
Does having 10 50-foot exhaust pipes benefit the car?
Yeah.
In the long run?
Does a dozen drummers beating a war drum help you? Like, these are the questions that you need to be asking yourself in this world.
It's fair enough. The system's created that's fine.
Yeah.
But when you create a system, you need to make sure it's operating at full function.
Yeah.
And is the system to create, like you say, vanity cars, or is it to create an imposing and capable army?
Yeah. Well, like, basically, this world is wide open for someone to come in who just builds practical, functional, but effective vehicles.
What about a tank?
Yeah, there's not.
A tank would be very useful.
Nary a tank is seen, Joe.
No. There is, of course, the bullet farmer's car has a caterpillar tread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, still, that's as functional as any vehicle gets in this world,
except for the war rig.
Yeah.
So your way to survive is just to have a war rig.
Well, I mean, the most sane looking or practical vehicles are driven by the protagonists. Like we see Mad Max's car in the beginning that gets quickly destroyed, and then the war rig is driven by Furiosa. So yeah, like in a world where everyone is mad anyway, what's the point in having a visually imposing but essentially weaker vehicle? Because everyone attacks with abandon and no care for their own survival. So why prioritise looking threatening in a world where no one feels threatened or has the ability to be threatened? But my question to you, Joe, is does it break the rules of our podcast to think this way, given that everyone in the film is essentially mad? Can we only think of mad survival ideas?
Interesting question. I would say perhaps to survive in a world that is mad, it pays to be sane.
Yeah, but
if everyone around you is mad, then approach. Here's one suggestion I've got. It segues nicely from your question, and that is observe the highway code.
Okay.
Right? Everyone around you is driving like an absolute maniac. If you do basic things, mirror, signal, manoeuvre, or
indicate.
Yeah, just allow people the space to move around you. Don't cut people up.
Yeah.
Drive with a safe braking distance between you and the car in front.
Yeah.
These are all things that people don't do.
Yeah.
And a lot of people end up dead in car accidents as a result.
Car accidents. Yeah.
I mean, if you want to avoid dying from dangerous driving, drive safer.
Yeah. The number of road traffic accidents.
Yeah, exactly.
In the Mad Max world.
Exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't see any red lights that people run.
Yeah.
No one's texting when they're driving, which is good. But they are doing various other things when they're driving.
Yeah.
You know?
This would be one of those roads that's highlighted as like an accident hotspot.
Yeah, exactly.
The Fury Road would be right at the top of the list.
Yeah, there'd be a sign with LEDs in it that says like, allow yourself 10 minutes of braking per hour.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Feeling tired? Tiredness kills.
Yeah.
Stop at the nearest hotel.
They should stop at Fleet Services on the Fury Road.
Yeah.
For a welcome break. Yeah. So that's one idea. I don't know. Maybe. Do you think that would hold up if people were to observe the rules of the road?
Yeah, I think that would be an interesting film.
Yeah.
Where, they're trying to chase after Furiosa, but they're stopping at traffic lights.
Yeah. And only going the speed limit.
Yeah, and going in a single column, like in a very safe and practiced manner. Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have any more?
Yeah, if you're returning to my point about the Citadel, if you're Immortan Joe, do you actually tangibly benefit from helping all the people who depend on you for water? Because he has all these worshippers, like who have been brought to heal, but why? Surely, I mean, it doesn't. It seems like he's in an impenetrable fortress.
It's not like he's running an economy and everyone pays taxes to him or anything.
Yeah,
because they're all essentially peasants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, what actual benefit is there to Immortan Joe to allow the? Is it just because my suggestion is that it would be a better idea to live quietly there on your little oasis in the middle of the desert.
And keep the water to yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the thing that is obviously missing is his messiah complex.
Yeah.
Being massaged.
But he's got lackeys anyway.
Yeah. I mean, like, what is he? What are his concerns in life? Is he trying to? Because he's clearly trying to foster children.
Yes.
With his wife.
A healthy child.
Yes, exactly. Because he's got two very unhealthy sons.
Yes.
And the splendid Angharad, like in a gruesome moment, has her baby cut out of her when she's already dead, and the baby is already dead. And it would have been a healthy child.
Yeah.
So that appears to be, and that's why he chases them down with such fury.
Yeah,
it's because he's desperate to have this child.
But why? To what end?
To ensure his line of succession or his progeny.
Yeah, his genetic information being passed on.
Yeah,
because he's.
But then that that he doesn't. I would argue that that's no less possible if you don't have a huge group following you.
Yeah, that's true, because they're sex slaves anyway.
Yeah,
they can't really. I mean, if you're gonna just do that anyway,
yeah,
it doesn't help to have 50,000 people depending on your water supply.
No.
Yeah. Well, good point. But then I think rule 4 of our podcast is that you have to help other people if you can.
Right.
So, for instance,
he's doing it out of the goodness of his heart. You're saying?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's what we're missing here, is that Immortan Joe is actually a very, very kind man.
Yeah. Okay.
Just misunderstood.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you had a disease that required intravenous drip of any kind, say it's blood.
Yeah.
So you're having a blood transfusion and you're called away on an important mission. So you have to take your IV drip with you, and you're in a car. Where best to secure the drip, do you think?
In the boot.
In the boot, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, like most road traffic accidents, I'd imagine, if they're the fault of the driver,
yeah,
they are gonna hit something head on.
Yes. So a bad idea to tie your blood supply to the front of a car when you're driving it in order to ram that car into things.
Yes,
yeah.
I agree. Also obscures your vision.
Yeah,
quite significantly.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it another? Again, this we return to vanity.
Yeah.
Mechanics.
Is it
vehicular vanity?
Is that impressive to people? Do the other war boys go, wow, that guy has got a
that guy
human
is
man
dependent on another person?
Yeah.
For survival. It's not, is it? So why? What possible reason? It's almost as though, Joe, they did it because it looked good in the film and was exciting.
Yeah.
And that is just disgusting.
No, exactly. You could say it's mad. And of course, the most obvious way to survive in this film, statistically speaking, is just simply to be a woman.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I think we see a few members of the
Vivillani.
Yeah, they're killed.
What about the old lady who looks after the...
and yeah, when Joe goes... We don't actually know what happens to her. So maybe Joe just went, give her a dressing down.
Yeah. So maybe it's his nan or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
She said they didn't want their sons to be warlords.
Yeah.
I think that's written on the ground. So yeah, I mean, be a woman. Because most men in the film die. In fact, Max is the only one who doesn't.
A lot of women die, though. A lot of the Vivillani.
But statistically speaking.
Yeah, okay.
Because every man other than Max dies.
But we see a lot of war boys. And no, because the entire army isn't destroyed.
Well, yeah.
Nor are all the peasants. And you would imagine...
But the entire army will be killed. Because they're dying of their mutant...
Okay, yeah. Don't be radioactive would be equally...
Yeah.
And you can't change character traits.
And gender.
Yeah. So you can't just go...
Instead of being
Mad
Nux,
Maxine.
I'll be a woman.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Good answer. Good idea though.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just playing the statistics.
Yeah, it just breaks the rules slightly, unfortunately.
Okay, fine. Chris, is that the wind, or is it a furious vexation? Because I think that's it. I think that's all we've got time for this week.
We've reached Valhalla.
Yep. So, thank you very much for listening, dear listener. Next week, we're covering The Survivalist.
Yeah, a very different post-apocalyptic film.
Yes, very different indeed.
Yes. So, if you haven't seen that, then give it a look. It came out this year.
And send in your thoughts. How would you survive in The Survivalist? Or indeed, how would you survive in Mad Max? We'd be able to revisit and think about that. HowToSurviveShow@gmail.com is our email address. You can also get in touch on Twitter. And be sure to follow us if you do. We are HowToSurvivePod. At HowToSurvivePod.
Yes.
And finally, if you want to leave us a review, please do. We're on iTunes or whatever device you're listening on.
Sure.
Head over 5 stars. That's what you like. 5 stars, please.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for listening. And that's it for this week.
See you next time. And we'll await you in Valhalla. Witness.
Witness.